You ever notice how people talk about your 20s like they're supposed to be the best years of your life? Like you're supposed to be going out every night, building a career, finding yourself, making money, traveling, falling in love, staying in shape, networking, healing your trauma, and somehow enjoying all of it at the same time. But for most people, your 20s are confusing. You're old enough to feel pressure, but still young enough to waste years without realizing it. And the dangerous part is, most mistakes in your 20s don't feel like mistakes when they're happening. They just feel normal. You tell yourself you're figuring things out. Then suddenly, you wake up one day feeling behind everybody else. Not because you failed dramatically, but because you drifted slowly. And I think that's what ruins most people. Not one terrible decision, just years of unconscious ones. So, here are 7 mistakes that quietly destroy people's 20s. Not in a motivational speaker way, just honestly. Confusing distraction with rest. I think this is probably one of the biggest ones. A lot of people today are mentally exhausted all the time, but instead of actually recovering, they just distract themselves harder. You finish work or school, you feel tired, so you open your phone for a few minutes. Then, somehow it's midnight. You watched clips, scrolled TikTok, checked messages, maybe watched half a YouTube video while barely paying attention to it. And technically, you rested. But your brain feels worse afterward. Because distraction and recovery are not the same thing. Real recovery usually feels slow. Sleep, silence, walking, reading, exercise, spending time with people you actually like. But constant stimulation feels easier. And the scary thing is you can lose entire years this way. Not because you were lazy, but because modern life makes it incredibly easy to stay mentally numb. I knew someone who always said he was too tired to work on the things he cared about, but every day he spent 5 or 6 hours online. Not creating anything, not learning, just consuming. And after a while, you could almost feel his attention span getting weaker. Everything started feeling difficult to him. Even sitting with his own thoughts. That's the part nobody talks about. Constant distraction slowly destroys your ability to focus, reflect, and actually want things deeply. You stop living intentionally. You just react all day. Most people underestimate how much their environment shapes them, especially in your 20s. You can be motivated on your own for a while, but eventually the people around you become your normal. And sometimes the worst environments aren't openly toxic, sometimes they're just comfortable. People who laugh at every serious goal. People who mock improvement. People who act like trying is embarrassing. You'll notice something interesting about ambitious people. A lot of them became ambitious after changing environments. Not because they suddenly became smarter, but because they finally met people who made growth feel normal. I remember hearing someone say, "Your life slowly starts looking like the conversations you have every day." And honestly, that's true. If everyone around you only talks about drama, gossip, trends, and escaping responsibility, eventually your brain adapts to that frequency. But if you spend time around people building things, improving themselves, learning skills, taking risks, you naturally start thinking bigger too. Not immediately, but slowly. And your 20s are too important to spend around people who secretly want you to stay small with them. 3. Waiting to feel ready. This one destroys years. People wait until they feel confident before they start, before posting videos, before applying for jobs, before learning a skill, before talking to someone they like, before changing their life. But confidence usually comes after action, not before it. Nobody starts good at anything. And honestly, most successful people looked uncertain in the beginning too. You just never see that version of them anymore. I think social media made this worse because now people compare their beginning to somebody else's chapter 10. So they hesitate, they overthink, they prepare endlessly. But preparation can become another form of avoidance. At some point, you have to accept being bad publicly for a while. That's the price. And people who improve the fastest are usually the ones willing to look stupid temporarily, because embarrassment fades surprisingly fast. Regret doesn't. 4. Building your identity around potential. This is a weird trap intelligent people fall into, especially people who are called gifted growing up. They become emotionally attached to potential instead of results, so they love the idea of being talented. But avoid situations that might challenge that identity, because if they truly try and fail, it hurts more. So instead, they procrastinate, overthink, switch goals constantly, or quit early. That way they can always tell themselves, I could have done it if I really tried. And years disappear like that. One of the hardest transitions in life is realizing discipline matters more than raw talent most of the time. Consistency looks boring, but boring things compound. A person practicing a skill for 2 hours every day will eventually beat someone who relies only on motivation. Almost every time. 5. Treating loneliness with noise. I think a lot of people are lonelier than they admit. But instead of confronting it, they drown it out. Music constantly playing, videos in the background, scrolling before sleep, always needing stimulation. Because silence forces reflection. And reflection can be uncomfortable, especially in your 20s when you're questioning your future, your identity, your relationships, your direction. But avoiding those thoughts doesn't remove them. It just delays them. Some people spend years running from themselves. Then one random night, everything catches up at once. I honestly think learning how to sit alone peacefully is one of the most underrated skills a person can develop. Not loneliness, solitude. There's a difference. One feels empty, the other feels clear. 6. Destroying your health because you're still young. Your body is forgiving in your 20s. That's what tricks people. Bad sleep, no exercise, terrible food, constant stress, nicotine, alcohol every weekend. You can survive it for a while and still function. But eventually the bill arrives. And the older you get, the harder it becomes to undo years of neglect. The problem is, people treat health like it only matters when something goes wrong. But health affects everything long before that. Your energy, your focus, your confidence, your emotions, your discipline, even your ability to think clearly. A lot of people think they're depressed when they're actually sleeping 4 hours, never moving their body, consuming garbage all day, and frying their dopamine system non-stop. Your mind and body are connected more than people want to admit, and no amount of motivation fixes a nervous system that's exhausted. 7. Living passively. This is probably the biggest mistake of all. Living like life is something happening to you instead of something you are actively shaping. Because passive living feels harmless. You delay goals until later. You stay in situations you know are wrong. You consume more than you create. You let algorithms decide what you think about all day. And suddenly you realize you've been mentally absent from your own life. That's why your 20s matter so much. Not because they need to be perfect, but because the habits you repeat during this decade quietly become your personality. The way you spend your days becomes the way you spend your life. And honestly, nobody fully figures life out in their 20s. Most people are confused, most people are improvising. But there's a difference between being lost while moving forward and being lost while standing still. One eventually teaches you something, the other just keeps you stuck. So, if there's one thing worth remembering, it's probably this. Your life changes much slower than you expect. Then, all at once. The small decisions you repeat every day matter way more than dramatic moments. The people around you matter, your habits matter, your attention matters. And the earlier you realize that, the less time you lose becoming someone you never actually wanted to be.